Raise your hand if Adam and Eve were real people.
Define real.
They were the first two humans on Earth, and we all stemmed from Adam and Eve. Okay. So raise your hand if the rapture is real.
Fan fiction.
Fanfic.
It totally is.
Okay. Fan fiction. Are you a little freaked out yet? Okay. All right. Let's go. Raise your hand if you knew that the word homosexual was only put in the Bible in 1946.
Because of the document.
Because of Rocky Roggio's documentary. But yes, it was only put in the Bible in 1946. Raise your hand if in mainline denominations, specifically we can say the UCC, the Bible is taken as every single word is literal, infallible, and all written by God/Jesus. Okay, let's stop there. Do you have comments on that one? This is what's so important. This is where evangelicals are going to start checking out because of the fear we were brought up with, which means if I hear anything that doesn't say these things, that is, we're just going to list them off. Heretical, political, they just want to do their own thing. This is not Christian, not Jesus-like, abomination. Any other words you want to throw out there?
Slippery slope, dude.
Slippery slope.
Disrespectful, ignorant.
Excellent.
Wolf in sheep's clothing. False prophet.
False prophets.
Oh, I got blasphemous temptress. I really like that one already.
I want to make you a t-shirt.
We did. It's on the
I love that.
site.
And guess what? I have one. I bought one. And it's upstairs. I'm going to wear it to the party.
Yes.
One last one. Do you believe that you have to pray the sinner's prayer in order to go to heaven, and the people that don't pray sinner's prayers go to hell of eternal conscious torment?
Oh, God.
You didn't ask if we believe in hell yet, but okay.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, I hope I broke some of your brains, because for evangelicals who may have never heard of this, this is where some people, your faith bubble bursts. You're so confused. You're like, what are you talking about? And I'm trying to show you 3 Christian pastors, 3 Christian leaders here that are saying that is not the only way to interpret the Bible. Welcome to the Sacred Slope, where the slippery slope becomes sacred ground. I'm Alexis Rice, and thank you so much for joining me today. You know, we've been live for a little over a year, and the Sacred Slope has now been in 96 countries and over 2,000 cities. I want to thank you for showing up, for being willing to learn a little bit more about our global, diverse, and inclusive faith, whether that's within your denomination or outside of it. One thing I love to say is that no person, political party, country, denomination holds the corner on what it means to be a Christian. And right now, there are certain versions of our Christian faith, especially in the United States, that is presenting it such. But we know, and you know, that that's not the only way. Before we get into this episode from Preaching Camp, I want to tell you what it felt like for me to be there. It was so healing. It was so moving to be in church spaces filled with singing and praying and preaching, caring for one another and breaking bread together. There were queer, trans, non-binary pastors, cisgender, and straight people all worshiping together. I met pastors doing a lot of quiet, faithful work of loving God and loving their neighbors as themselves in communities across the Northeast of the United States. Many of these pastors are really highly educated. They have Masters of Divinity and PhDs and years of theological training. What was undeniable is their love for Jesus, so much so that they have dedicated their entire lives nurturing the spiritual lives of others. What stayed me was how willing they are to continue learning, even though they've been preaching, for some of them, longer than I've been alive. They came to sharpen their preaching and to listen to one another and to think about how to proclaim the gospel faithfully in their communities, even when things are really changing. I want to thank each and every one of you who I got the privilege of meeting. You are inspiring me so much with the work that you're doing, with the care and compassion that you have for other humans, and you give me hope in the future of our faith. I can't wait to see what you continue to do together. Thank you for allowing me to be in your space. Preaching Camp was started by Reverend Dr. Chris Davies from the United Church of Christ, the Southern New England Conference. I was privileged to give a couple lectures on pastoring to evangelicals and battling Christian nationalism with Christianity and being a public witness in the digital age. I shared clips from pastors and Christians who were raised in evangelical Christianity from the show, including Pastor Cody Deese and April Ajoy, talking about their childhood experiences around Halloween and not necessarily being allowed to celebrate Halloween or go to haunted houses because that was bad, but being taken to judgment houses and hell houses instead. And I think what some people realized there was that for a lot of people, our entry point into this Christian faith is through fear of burning in eternal conscious torment, and then praying to Jesus to save us as children. And that's the way our brains are formed. Many of the pastors who were in the classes were not raised that way. Could you imagine? They came from progressive or non-fundamentalist traditions. They did not grow up hearing the same messages about eternal conscious torment of hell, about the rapture being real, about sexuality and gender, about women not being leaders. And that really helped me see things a lot more clearly. Progressive pastors may already have thoughtful, faithful answers to the questions that evangelicals are carrying. But the person walking into their church may not know that. They may not know that they're allowed to ask, can I be gay and Christian? Can I be a woman and a pastor? Really? Do I have to believe in the rapture? Can I be pro-choice and a Christian? Can I be a Democrat and a Christian? Do I have to believe in hell as eternal conscious torment? Are there other atonement theories besides penal substitutionary atonement theory? For some people, saying those questions out loud is a really big deal, especially to clergy. So one of my suggestions for progressive pastors is to consider offering a regular space, maybe monthly or quarterly, specifically for people coming out of evangelicalism. Give them somewhere to ask what they weren't allowed to ask before, or if they did ask, that they were told that they were doubting. Do not assume that they know what your church believes, and do not assume that they know that there are other faithful ways to be Christian. A lot of us were told that anything outside of those rigid viewpoints is heretical. And so it's hard to believe that it's okay, even when people may not believe in faith anymore and are starting new by taking a step into coming into your church. Separately, I wanted to plug the Sacred Slope is hosting our second virtual Pastors Lab, August 13th and 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It brings together progressive and moderate Christians that are interested in battling Christian nationalism and offering counterpoints. There were people from 23 countries that came to our first one. They're from different denominations. This is so essential in an era where Christian nationalism is not only trying to present itself as a legitimate form of Christianity, but the only form of Christianity, and in fact, interested in taking over our government, our laws, our ways of being through something you might have heard called a Seven Mountain Mandate. Look it up if you don't. Joining me again is Reverend Pastor Paul Dries, an American Lutheran pastor, and Reverend Geraldine Henry, a Canadian Anglican priest. Also, Reverend Joe Smith is going to join us as a special guest on August 15th, where you'll be able to ask questions about his evangelical roots and how he responds to toxic messaging from the manosphere from a Christian perspective. You can find more information in the show notes or at pastorpauldries.com. You can sign up all the way up through the 13th. For now, I hope you will listen to these unbelievable pastors that I'm talking to today. I hope that you will watch this one online on Spotify or on YouTube, because I put a lot of really fun things that you can see in the video. Let's go ahead and listen to Rev Reilly Paige, Rev Dr. Chris Davies, and Rev Jim Keat. Thank you all three for joining me at preaching camp. It was really fun to be at church camp again as an adult. So listen to the care that they have for their communities, their different strengths, and the faithful work that they are all doing. I left preaching camp reminded that Christianity is much, much larger and more beautiful and more loving than the loudest version of it. Let's go.
There's beauty in unraveling, safety in the questioning. Home is where you're wandering. You're right where you're supposed to be. You're right where you're supposed to be.
Frankly, I'm tired. And sad. Maybe you're in that space now, too, with the onslaught of normalized terror. And edicts that ignore the law. Every once in a while, I imagine the way we were a few years ago. At that point, it sure felt like there was a lot more collective trust possible. For some. Now, though, when I'm at my worst, it is so easy to slip into these binaries of right, wrong, good, bad, us, them. Binaries are easy. And truly rare. If they're ever there. Complexity, now that is hard. When I'm at my best, I can hold space for the fullness of complexity. But when I'm tired, and when I feel like hope is farther away than I'd like, I can fall back into the ways of anxiousness, a common companion. That's why I need Jesus. That's also why I need church community. We hold hope in escrow for each other. We carry the possibility of a new heaven and a new earth, a vision of collective liberation across generations. We, like the stubborn New Englanders we are, refuse to give up. Siblings in faith, I need you. And now, more than ever, we need each other. It keeps getting nearly comedically worse. I mean, happy 250th, drain the swamp, all that. We made a swamp. And on the 4th anniversary of the Davies decision, that's today, I can't help but feel it in my body, all these onslaughts. Some of us have been holding it for so long, tense with anticipation for what will the news bring. My family, my community endangered. The impact of edicts on high filtering down, laden with fear and misinformation, lies and gaslighting. What will happen with the nets of care we've made for ourselves and our families and our communities? What will happen with the stores of resources, the predictable income streams or lack thereof, and the wider awareness of leadership and respect that filters from our home to the world at large, at least in our imaginations? How will I lead and show up in these times where the grief is compounding and often ignored? In a world where things seem to be changing faster than we ever anticipated, we may feel as if we're wandering in the desert, looking for streams of hope and imagining a peace we once thought we knew. There's a whispered promise, you see, on the wind telling us of a new world, a time to lay our burdens down, a new city. Then we tell ourselves, we'll be done with the overworking, with next week I'll be able to rest. We're pushed in some ways from a predictable culture of what might happen, pushed from a faith in a governmental system that is crumbling and changing before our very eyes, and into the wilderness. We didn't want to leave. It wasn't really that bad, was it? No. Nor, not for all of us anyway. I know we could have done better collectively, but my family, we might whisper. We've been lucky. Oh, so lucky. The veil of what's lifted for so many people, in a way, that is new. The lie of complacency is a really, really hard one to put down. And in the realities experienced, the grief is tangible. This is our faith, isn't it? This is the work of following Jesus Christ, who organized in his own time and taught a new way, was crucified on the cross, gone in the grief of Holy Saturday, and rose again on Easter morning with a new promise on the wind. We tend to focus on that last bit. The stories that tell us the end is ever out of sight. when the stories tell us that the end is ever out of sight. And I got to remember that even with the risen Lord, it's not like the problems of the world Jesus organized within were immediately dissipated. The power structures remained. Rome still reigned. The poor were still mistreated. It was an initiating incident, this resurrection, that caught the spirits and spread into leaders like Paul and like Lydia, organizers telling a story of hope and continuing to do the work. Proclaimers like each one of us.
Welcome back to the Sacred Slope, friends. I'm Alexis Rice, and we have a very special episode with you today. We are doing this in person. These are our guests today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Rev Reilly Paige, Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, and Reverend Jim Keat, also known as Rev Jim Runs.
Jesus loves dinos.
And Chris is Jesus Loves Dinos.
I mean, if we're plugging social media, we got to plug them all.
It's more just my identity in life.
Oh, that you run?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a branding.
Yeah, great.
So that was a good beginning. Let's do that again.
You want to do it again?
No.
I like it. You want to do it again?
Good.
My social media is not interesting right now, so I'm not going to be like, and Ranger Riley. Like,
Are you Ranger Riley?
yeah.
That's so
Well,
cute.
They are like definitely deaning this whole experience. And it's like, yeah, you're the counselor at camp.
Okay.
That did come from Summer Camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was either that or Annie Oak Tree, but we thought the kids were going to miss the pun, so it was Ranger Riley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Ranger Reilly right here, everybody. The dean, the preaching dean of Project Proclaim Preaching Camp. I'm really excited because we are here in Litchfield, Connecticut for Preaching Camp. And this is such an amazing experience. This is from the United Church of Christ denomination, which, as you all know, is something that I am not part of, but I have actually interviewed several people from the United Church of Christ. Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, this is your third appearance on the show, right? Yeah. No one's appeared more than her, and I love her so much. And I have enjoyed so tremendously becoming friends with Reverend Reilly and with Reverend Jim. I can't wait for you guys all to hear from them today. Reverend Jim Keat is a digital minister at the legendary Riverside Church in New York City, and one of the leading voices helping churches think about digital ministry.
When the church preaches a misogyny that silences women using scripture to keep them out of leadership and trapped in harmful situations, that needs to be uprooted. When the church preaches homophobia and transphobia in Pride Month or any month, a theology that not only excludes but kills, that needs to be uprooted. When the church preaches a colorblind theology claiming she's moved past race while failing to reckon with slavery, redlining, and white supremacy that's preached from too many pulpits still today, that needs to be uprooted. When the church preaches white Christian nationalism that wraps the cross in a flag and the flag in a cross, that needs to be uprooted. When the church preaches a theology of empire that blesses military violence and American exceptionalism as if Pax Americana and the kingdom of God were the same thing, that needs to be uprooted. Any system or structure, even if it wears four walls and a tall steeple, even when it quotes all the scripture in the book, any that dismantles a community whose only crime is struggling to stay alive, that needs to be uprooted.
Rev Reilly Paige is a pastor in the United Church of Christ as the dean of this year's Preaching Camp, helping create a space where pastors can learn, worship, and imagine together. And Reverend Dr. Chris Davies serves as executive minister for programs and initiatives for the Southern New England Conference of the United Church of Christ, which oversees many of the conference's ministries, directs Project Proclaim, and helps equip around 600 churches around the Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island area for ministry today. So today we're going to be talking about something bigger than just social media. We're going to be asking who gets to define Christianity in America? What happens when the loudest voices aren't the only voices? And what would it take for more people to discover there is another way to have a prophetic faith in this world that does not necessarily always look like the voices that we hear in media today? Thank you so much for being on the Sacred Slope today.
Our honor.
It's the sacred couch.
This is the Sacred Couch.
It's just slow people.
Just slow. I would love to hear, who is Reverend Reilly Paige?
So I am a preacher, a teacher, and a party planner. I've been in ministry for 15 years, spent a long time as a youth minister and an associate pastor. And I love being the pastor that I needed growing up. And so that is mostly what my ministry is grounded in, and being authentic and being a possibility model for the young people in my congregation. Possibility model, a term I've stolen from Laverne Cox, who says, I don't need people to be in the same role as me, but I want to show people that someone like me is possible. So that is the foundation on which I build. I love bringing humor and storytelling. I'm a big Bible nerd. I have a high biblical literacy, so I love bringing in all of these stories and saying, these are our ancestors of our faith. How do we be in conversation with them? What conversations can we overhear that they are having that have impact on where we are today? And how do we all, try to be a little nicer to each other and leave this place a little better than we found it? So that's a little bit about my ministry. Originally grew up in the Midwest. I have been on the East Coast, married, have a couple of dogs. Life is good.
Amazing. And Reilly, you use they, them pronouns, correct?
I do use they, them pronouns. Thank you for asking.
Great. Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, who are you?
Hi, friends. It's so good to be back here with all of you. I am a beekeeper. I am an Irish American, a liturgist, a preacher, a teacher, an imagination of worlds. One who imagines worlds alongside all of those who are willing to dare. I am a mother and a leader, and I'm happy to be here again. Thank you.
Thank you. And how's your wife doing at home? Holding down the fort.
She's doing great. She is wonderful.
Yeah?
She's wonderful. I can't say enough about my wife. She is a very lucky femme.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Chris's wife is my fashion icon. Every time I get to see a photo of Chris's wife on the internet, I'm like, oh, taking notes. Yeah.
Yeah. She's, and I want to say that she's taught me so much. She's not a Christian, and this is actually really important, right? Like we are constantly in relationships cross faith, whether it's one version of faith or one experience of faith or faith, non-faith. But she's not a Christian, but she knows church, right? Like she knows church. Her family is very faithful in a denomination very similar to the United Church of Christ and the Disciples of Christ. But because she spent so much time as an abortion care worker, her experience of faith was always walking through the protesters. So when we first got together, it was like she was just like, so you're a pastor. And I was just like,
I know
One of those.
I know that.
I'm not your pastor. So
Yeah.
I do not want that. In fact, let's discuss other options. And, it took us a long time to get to the place of like, how do we do life together? But ultimately what it comes down to is I say God, she says gut, and they function about the same.
Interesting.
But
Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for letting me gush on my girl.
I love it. Reverend Jim.
Hi.
Who are you?
I am very tall. I'm sitting down so you can't tell, but
They can still tell.
yeah. I am a runner, thus Rev Jim runs. I train for usually 2 marathons a year, mainly with the goal to be healthy enough to live to be 117, because that would get me to the year 2100. Most people don't experience an entire century in their body. And I'm like, I have the chance if I am healthy enough and my knees work. So we're doing what we can with all of that. My goal is to get to 100, and then science will take me the rest of the way.
Okay.
We'll see that. So, dad of 2 kids, wife at home with them right now while we are here.
Oh, bless her.
Bless all the
mom.
people who are caring for humans and animals while we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a pastor at a church in New York, Riverside Church, which is the tallest church in North America.
Welcome to the Riverside Church Virtual Tower Tour. The idea of the Riverside Church emerged out of the mutual vision between John D. Rockefeller Jr. and Reverend Harry Emerson Fosdick, a joint venture between America's greatest philanthropist and America's prophetic liberal preacher. The Riverside Church is modeled after a 13th century Gothic cathedral in Chartres, France. The 360-foot tower was the tallest church tower in the world at the time we opened our doors for worship in 1930. There is a 3-level belfry that houses 74 bells, which at the time of its construction was the largest carillon bells in the world. Up next is the 2nd-level landing, where we stop to observe the symbolic original bell dedicated to Laura Spelman in 1925 to the Park Avenue Baptist Church by John D. Rockefeller Jr. in memory of his mother. Mrs. Laura Spelman was an American abolitionist, philanthropist, and a school teacher, a prominent member of the Rockefeller family. Her husband was Standard Oil co-founder John D. Rockefeller Sr. Mrs. Rockefeller's commitment to funding education initiatives extended from Riverside Church Weekday School to Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and many historic black colleges. Let's look at the amazing view from the very top of the observation deck. A view east, Union Theological Seminary, Columbia University, St. John of the Vine, Central Park, Harlem. On the south side, the Hudson River, the Battery, the Hudson Yards, the World Trade Center, and the 9/11 Tribute Museum.
I think I needed to work in a tall place because that's how it goes, right? Before that, I was at a church in the East Village. Before that, I was at a church in West Michigan. I live in Michigan, work in New York. So my focus at Riverside is on our online community, cultivating online content and spaces for them to connect coast to coast and around the world. So basically, I do a lot of Zoom calls, and then I go running, and then I make videos and podcasts and things. But it's a lot of fun.
So can I ask you a little bit about that? I'm just going to dive right in to understand. Do you do Bible studies online then? What does a digital ministry mean?
I think there are at least two clear lanes of digital ministry. And I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so of course I'm going to do them both. One is like stepping into online spaces to proclaim something publicly. So public theology in online spaces. That's what you see and all the things you're scrolling through. It's this podcast. It's all these spaces where we are proclaiming a different way to understand God and faith, spirituality, and what it means to step into the way of Jesus. So that's necessary in one of them. But then the other one I think is just old-fashioned church. It's getting to know Bill from Berkeley and Davana from South Carolina and Ron from Austin and Betty Kay from Scotland, and actual people who I know because I have Zoom calls all the time where they're at a Bible study or a virtual coffee hour or another Bible study or a short circle on Thursday night, or just creating spaces where you can just be a pastor to people, but the parish has just been redefined from a physical boundary to an online space. So it's not the fun, sexy, all the likes and dopamine rushes. It's the let's gather on Zoom for a Bible study. So I do all that stuff quite a bit as well, which is a whole lot of fun. That's actually the most meaningful, I think. Like 7 minutes on the first Sunday of every month when people who are worshiping online click away from a YouTube video and click into a Zoom call to share communion together lets us know, even if you've been by yourself for the past hour, you aren't alone, because I'm seeing faces, and it's probably the most communion-y communion you can have, rather than just shuffling forward, waiting your turn. It's like, I see people, we see one another, and we haven't been seeing people. We've just been anonymously online. So it's even a more intimate connection. So just patch your stuff.
Wow. One more question on that. Does that mean if anybody is listening around the world and doesn't want to go into a physical church, but is like, I might try, a digital online church space, what would they do? What does that look like?
Yeah, probably just go to trcnyc.org. That's the church's website. Church services on Sunday morning. We have Bible study on Zoom at 9:30 a.m. Church starts around 11. We do virtual coffee hour on Zoom after. We have a Bible study on Wednesdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time for 30 minutes. I call it an appetizer of a Bible study, just enough to make you want to come back for more. And people keep coming back for more, which baffles me. We just finished Leviticus.
Some people like, whoa.
We had 30 people coming every week to learn about Leviticus. We're going through the entire Bible. So anyone can join, come find us, look up Riverside in any place online, or I'm one of 2 Jim Keats in the world. The other one is my dad. So just look for the one that looks a little bit younger.
Excellent, excellent. Reverend Reilly, I'd like to ask you, what keeps you following Jesus?
What keeps me following Jesus? I have not found a different way to orient my life that feels this good. I got incredibly lucky that even in my conservative upbringing, nothing shook for me the understanding that God loved me unconditionally. And what I needed to unlearn was God is not the church and God is not the Bible. And the church and the Bible, the institution and the text can love me with many conditions. What keeps me following Jesus is the embodiment of a man who was an immigrant and a refugee and brown-skinned and gathered the outsiders in, and seeing that happen over and over again and seeing the arc of the text continue to be growing bigger and bigger circles of inclusion. That has kept me following Jesus, to continue to see my place in the family of God, to continue to be able to show people that Jesus, to continue to try to reclaim and claw back my faith from people who have twisted it into something really ugly and into a cudgel. Like, these things make me really passionate. Like, I am sold out on the philosophy and ethic of Jesus. The finer points of the dogma, I can kind of take or leave. But the do unto others as you would have unto you is seen in so many different world religions and worldviews, but the lens of Jesus really does it for me. So that's why.
That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Reverend Dr. Davies, same question.
Hi, friends. Do you guys remember when we had cell phones with ringtones?
Yeah.
Yeah, before they were quiet in our pocket forever.
Yes.
Now the ringtone is
Yeah. Right. No, mine was, Jesus is a friend of mine. I've had friends before, and I can tell you that he's one that will never leave you flat. Ding, ding. And I know. All through college, it was a real heartbreaker. But it was
I don't know if you're dating one.
Oh, listen, that's a whole nother conversation, especially because I went to a women's college. It was good for me. So, I mean, Jesus really is a friend of mine, a companion along the way, a teacher, an organizer, a prophet, and someone who demonstrates what it is to live in resistance to empire, not just today, like not just then, but today. You know, today in this era, what it means to exist within a system that was created to destroy us. And do so with grace and alignment and love for neighbor. And he's a model in that way. So to keep following him is to keep being in conversation with the best version of myself, as inspired by, you know, his teachings and leadership and a journey that he took. And of course, the other part of this is that, like, when you're in a role like ours, you know, all of ours, you're the way that I know you listening to carry leadership roles. Sometimes following Jesus is just the way in which we can say, listen, somebody else already died for this shit.
Or when you ask the question, did Jesus die with us?
Oh,
Yeah.
This right here.
Okay, Reverend Jim, same question.
I have not done Duolingo in a long time. And the times that I've tried, I learned a little bit, but I'm well aware I will never be fluent in another language the way I'm fluent in English. Because this was the language I grew up around. It's the language I grew up speaking. I've studied this language. I've read countless books in this language. So as much as I'm interested in other languages and I need to learn other languages, I'm aware that for me, English is always going to be just a framing context through which I understand everything. So I think Christianity and following Jesus feels similar. I would have been a really good Buddhist, but I wasn't born there. So I grew up in a much different flavor of Christianity that I hold and follow today, but I still have a frame that helps me orient myself, and I'm able to evolve and grow and allow a Jesus that I see to evolve and grow beyond what I was given, just as language evolves and grows. Because come on, when I was a kid, man meant everyone. And now we're like, well, yeah. So I think for me, following Jesus is just the framework that I've been given. And it's a framework that I don't feel I need to abandon entirely. There are parts that obviously need to be shed and shifted and changed. And I feel like there should be the flexibility for that. I stumbled into the Reformed tradition where we get the great phrases, reformed and ever being reformed. Not reformed, and it's the being reformed. It's still happening. There's still something ongoing in this nature. So I feel like any tradition that's going to give me space for growth and flexibility is one that I'm interested in. And I feel like the way of Jesus has room for that. If nothing else, it still becomes a language that so many other people speak too. So if I wanted to be like, well, I'm done with this, then I lost the ability to even speak to people for whom that's their language as well. So part of it is just, it still gives me meaning and framing, and it's the ability to help others have hope and meaning and framing in their life as well.
Who already feels good, everybody? I have a question for Reverend Reilly. When someone says Christian, what does that word mean to you today? We're already going to just go there. Christian means a lot of different things in this time in the United States. There has been one party that has co-opted the word Christian and has decided that this is what it means to be Christian. That is what we generally see in the media, in the government, and in evangelical spaces, which is where I come from, and a couple of you guys came from as well, ish. But you certainly all speak the evangelical language. You understand that it's very different than a lot of mainline Christianity, progressive Christianity. At this preaching camp, my brain keeps breaking because I've personally done all the deconstruction work, but what I found so interesting is things that sound so normal to me as an evangelical do not resonate with people who were cradle mainline Christians, who were cradle UCCers. Talk about language. Like, we are speaking different languages in many ways. It attracts me to the fact that Christianity is not just looking like Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
And I'd love to ask you, Reverend Reilly,
Yeah.
what does Christianity mean for you?
Just the easy ones, right?
Yeah, we're going for the easy one.
You talk about this pluralism of Christianity, and it feels like those of us who grew up in more conservative evangelical spaces and then have come out in a more progressive space have sort of learned to code switch.
Yes.
Right? And there are ways in which I can talk to my evangelical mother and I can hear her ask me the questions and I can translate those into something compassionate and loving when someone else who doesn't know the language might say, oh, that sounds really judgy. But because she's my mother and because of where we come from, I can take that, right? So there's that code switching that allows me to remain in relationship and to be able to open wider doors for folks who need to come on this journey because the progressive faith fits more their value system. It's so hard to define the word Christian. I find myself immediately like, I don't ever come out about being queer, but I come out about being Christian all the time. And usually my first thing is, I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, I'm not a recruiter. And that usually helps set people at ease. But in any sort of cross-cultural situation, trying to listen for what people mean when they say certain things, to say like, well, I'm spiritual, but not religious. That's a phrase. Oh, all are welcome, or love the sinner, hate the sin. You just got to pray more for the joy of the Lord to be your strength. Like, there are things that I hear and I can go, okay, let me meet you in this theology. Let me meet you in this worldview. And then where can I nudge you a little bit, or where can I challenge your thinking? But to be a Christian, I went through a big period of my faith journey where I just referred to myself as a person of faith.
A lot of people are doing that now.
Yeah, because the word Christian has been so co-opted and so twisted. And so what's the work? Is the work to reclaim that word and to redefine that in our ministry and in our online presence and in our pulpits? Or is it to say, this word no longer serves? And I don't have the answer to that. I lean one way on the answer to that, but it means so many things to so many different people. And for me, right now, to throw around the word Christian means to ask follow-up questions.
Wow, great. Can you talk a little bit more of that? So if someone says I'm a Christian,
Yeah, I
What
mean,
would
I'm
you
not
ask?
gonna be rude and be like, so what kind of Christian?
The wrong kind of the rake.
Yeah. I might say, oh, great, where do you worship?
Mhm.
And that would give me some indication on what sort of flavor or worldview they might hold. I might also ask, what are you studying right now? Who are you reading? I might drop a few names and see their reaction. Prominent thinkers, theologians. I might say, oh, I've really been enjoying Richard Rohr. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I only read John Piper.
I'd be like, great. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go grab a sandwich.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So that's, I mean,
Hmm.
because Christianity is not one thing.
Yes.
And I think we assume a lot of things about that word. And if we don't get a little curious, we might miss out on incredible relationships. Even cross-culturally Christianity, like there are people who I can be in relationship with who we will never see eye to eye dogmatically, but who see me and love me and appreciate me and my calling and know and validate me. And that's lovely. And there are people who think I'm an abomination and I don't need to invest in that. Someone else will be in relationship with them.
Kick that dust from your shoes.
That's right. And
Mhm.
not everybody's going to want to come to my church. But as you know, and as you've said before, like there are so many churches to choose from. And queer people don't have that option always. So I'm going to be welcoming to the people who find the least welcome in the world. Like all are welcome, but not all behaviors. And maybe I don't want anyone ever to feel like they're being kicked out of church, but maybe there is a time in which another house of worship might make you feel more comfortable.
Mhm.
And that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Reverend Dr. Davies, I would like to ask you about preaching camp.
Oh, yay.
I would love to. How did you put this together? Why did you put this together? What I love so much about it is that there's mostly pastors here. I would say like 60-75% of the pastors are queer, I believe. It's a spectrum.
I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
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 He's
And-
our token cis white straight guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Maybe there's two of us.
He's-
No,
he-
maybe just me.
He's the
No,
diversity
it's-
hour.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple, but what's been really special is, meeting some pastors and they're females and they're lesbians and they've been pastors for 30 years at their church.
Yeah.
And the richness of hearing about that story has just been amazing. Jesus is here in a way that I haven't fully experienced Jesus before. I want the whole world to know about it and see it.
Well, first, I want to say that, identity was not the basis of gathering here. So we'll name that, even as we say, like, Reilly Paige, as Dean of Preaching Camp, has assembled the structure of this time. And the ideation and the hope of it came from, work that I've done along the years of queering proclamation. What I mean by that is that it's how we preach, how we teach, how we show up in the world as Christians in a way that is, we could call this evangelism camp. We could, but this is a narrative that doesn't sit always well in mainline spaces. And yet, here we are with the purpose of taking the good news. I say that, preaching and proclamation is telling the story as to why the gospel matters. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're here to do. Why does it matter that we're talking about this Jesus? Why does it matter that we're talking about a holy experience? And, when we got here, what I frame in this is that this is a micro retreat. It's a place where we practice who and how do we want to show up in this world. How do we want to be together? How do we learn from each other? Because everybody has wisdom to bring. There are wisdom leaders we've invited to guide us on the way, including you. Thank you so much for bringing the wisdom that you have to a community that, is hungry for learning. Each one of us has a sacred story and a relationship with the divine that's worth learning from, engaging, and validating. Each person listening has a relationship with the divine that matters. Yes, it has trauma. And that's not the end of the story. The seeking out of this special episode tells me that it matters enough to you that you want to know more and that your stretching for relationship is a relationship within itself. So preaching camp is a way by which we can equip pastors and preachers. It's not only pastors, it's the leaders and laity too who want to be preaching to preach better And that means that we're doing it in our pulpits, but it also means that we're doing it every place we can. We're doing it on the internet. We're doing it in podcasting, in short form and long form, in
And Substack.
And Substack. Speaking of which, follow my new Substack, Honey for the Apocalypse at Substack.
It's so good. I'm serious. Please do it.
We'll have a 4th episode about that.
Yeah. And then the 5 Timers Club after that. So.
Oh, the rope. Yeah, no, I mean, I just think that this, for me, like this conversation of why are we still Christian? Why are we still doing this is one that we are all engaging in different ways. And Preaching Camp is one way that we are equipping our people, engaging it and encouraging a way that gets us out of our little boxes, our little white boxes on the hill. I love them. And also, transformation certainly happens there. But it happens in relationship, and it happens in relationship across difference, and it happens in the ways in which we show up in our communities. So Preaching Camp is an equipping in that methodology, like an equipping of that, of how we evangelize with each other to keep going, because this is not easy work. I'm tired. You tired? You tired? We're tired. And this is the work that our ancestors have been doing. We are here because someone carried this faith to us, as Jim said before, gave us a framework of understanding the world, as Reilly mentioned, and we are here to continue to have the voracious hope that this is not how it will end, that the world will be closer to the world God imagines for us, closer to the kingdom of God, closer to heaven on earth. And that it's us pulling that together to make it happen. So we practice in spaces like this, and then we go forth saying, yeah, actually, I can do this. I can do this. We can do this. And we're not doing it by ourselves.
Okay, I'm going to take a second, because every time that Chris speaks, someone's like, oh. So I need like an emotional.
Get the
find the point.
It's so freaking good.
Bible in a Minute, Mark chapter 3. The perpetual virginity of Mary is the Christian doctrine that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was a virgin before, during, and after the birth of Christ. Now, to be clear, I don't believe in this, but some Christians throughout history, and maybe even today, do. Only Mark, the guy who wrote the gospel we call Mark, apparently did not. How do we know? Because in this chapter, which covers a lot of ground, including breaking the Sabbath to heal a man, sending out the 12, which is literally what qualifies them to be apostles, and being compared to a demon, Mark introduces Jesus' mother and brothers. Now, this whole section is really about Jesus broadening the understanding of what we mean by family, but it also implicitly acknowledges that Mary had more kids. So if the perpetual virginity of Mary is your thing, be careful when you read the Bible, because that worldview just might get shattered.
Reverend Jim, if someone only knew about Christianity through cable news and social media and doesn't go to a church, this is especially for mainline Christians. What are young people seeing?
I mean, cable news clearly is owned by a lot of people with agendas, so that seems to perpetually put one representation of Christianity or a pastor in front of that camera. Social media is probably still mostly co-opted with that same white, straight, cis, Republican voting, pro-life only, always support Israel because that'll usher in the apocalypse theology. Oh, by the way, boys are better than girls, obviously. But I'm grateful that I think a young person might swipe through and see a queer woman of color wearing a clerical collar, or hear someone asking questions that they were never even allowed to say out loud in the church they grew up in. So sadly, the majority is still mostly a certain narrative. My favorite is Bethany Peerbolt, who I need to introduce you to, Rev Bethany in all the places.
She's a youth pastor just outside of Detroit. And when the pandemic started, she was doing everything online. And one of her students started saying some things. And she's like, where are you learning that theology? Because we don't teach that at our Presbyterian church. And the person said, oh, I found this on TikTok. And so she said, I think I need to get on TikTok. And so she started saying, I need to show up in a way as a queer woman who's ordained, who can model just a different embodiment of what it means to be a Christian, as well as a theology that is in contrast to what they were encountering. So I'm grateful that there are opportunities for it to be discovered. But sadly, the narrative is often still, it's either your one-way ticket to get out of jail and go to heaven, beam me up to that spaceship someday, or it's this antiquated thing that is irrelevant. And both of those answers, I think, are incredibly unhelpful. So hopefully we can be a part of a movement that shifts that narrative and that representation.
Jim, I want to tell you, I was talking with a friend on Instagram today. She's not a person of faith at all, wasn't raised in it. And she said, I want to talk with you, Chris. I'm reading the Bible. I've gotten all the way to Leviticus and I want to have a conversation. And I said, I can't wait. Let's schedule a coffee. Also, have you seen this project, Bible in a Minute? Like maybe read the Bible alongside Bible in a Minute. If you're going to start at the beginning, here's a way to have an interpretation chapter by chapter.
Yes, please.
So, I mean, I'm thinking about how do we show up and what are the tools and what is on the internet? And it is such a mandate for those of us who proclaim to be in the places where the people are.
Yeah, okay, we got to steal the mic. This is the problem. Too often, us progressives with the greatest theology,
Yes.
we don't know how to get out of the pulpit of the past. And we forget about the pulpit of the present and the future because that's where people are actually, that's the pew they're sitting down in to receive a message. But we just keep waiting for them to come to church and then they never do. Right. And we're like, what do we need to do differently to get the young people to come to church?
A band.
A band.
My young pastor of the family.
An acoustic guitar.
Yes.
Better snacks, pizza.
Yeah. Coffee in the sanctuary.
The guitar helps. Just saying.
But the point is, like, people with the best theology, the healthiest theology, the most life-giving and flourishing theology are keeping it literally in a box, waiting for the world to stumble upon it like a secret, while the rest of the evangelical, conservative world has figured out, well, part of my hunch is they see the internet as a new frontier for evangelism.
Yeah.
And as progressives, we have a different understanding of it. It's not about, I like to say I believe in a literal hell, but it's here now. And I want people to get out of it already. I'm not waiting to give you a ticket to get on some spaceship to Mars or heaven, whichever one comes first by whatever person has the most money. It's how to, so.
But the burning house.
But the burning house.
But the burning.
But this is where Bible in a Minute, to talk about that for a second, exists. It's a big project going through the entire Bible, 1 day video chapter at a time, 1 minute long, 1,189 chapters. Chris Davies has done quite a few. Reilly, you're on my list, so look for an email soon. Yeah.
And what account do they have to follow for Bible in a Minute?
Oh, it's on everything. So on Instagram, it's its own account, Bible in a Minute. Riverside's socials are where a lot of it is. So the Riverside Church on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook. It has its own Substack. So after you follow hers, follow Bible in a Minute. But really, if you look up Bible in a Minute, you're probably going to find it. But one of my biggest thoughts for this, it does a couple of things. I wanted to help people learn something new about the Bible, maybe inspire them to pick up the book and read it for themselves, and then to, most importantly, model what it looks like to read and interpret the Bible from a progressive and liberative point of view. Because that is what we don't see enough. We have lots of representation of reading the Bible from a conservative point of view, a male point of view. We just call that theology, even though it is also a construct. So this hope is that it helps someone encounter an array of about 150, 200 different faith leaders who've contributed to this process. Most of them aren't my physical identity and makeup, which is my favorite thing about the project. So how can someone make their way through the entire book? Because so often the conservatives say, oh, you liberals don't even read the Bible.
Right.
Want to bet? We're going to read the whole thing, beginning to end, chapter by chapter, the whole thing. So all you need is 1,189 minutes, and you can binge the Bible.
Binge the Bible.
You got to binge it. I think I'm going to do some elephants in the room questions. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Here's some elephants in the room. We started off by if you were an evangelical or a progressive, or if you only have heard evangelical versions of Christianity, you'd say, like, this sounds pretty Christian-y so far. Like, I don't understand. What's the difference between a mainline church, a UCC church, besides the fact that we have queer representation in leadership? Okay, so that's like a difference that you would not typically see in evangelical spaces. But I'm going to show you a few of the differences. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Blanketly, I know it's going to be different. But what is typically believed in more mainline spaces? Okay?
Yeah.
So raise your hand if Adam and Eve were real people.
Define real.
They were the first two humans on Earth, and we all stemmed from Adam and Eve. Okay. So raise your hand if the rapture is real.
Fan fiction.
Fanfic.
It totally is.
Okay. Fan fiction. Are you a little freaked out yet? Okay. All right. Let's go. Raise your hand if you knew that the word homosexual was only put in the Bible in 1946.
Because of the document.
Because of Rocky Roggio's documentary. But yes, it was only put in the Bible in 1946. Raise your hand if in mainline denominations, specifically we can say the UCC, the Bible is taken as every single word is literal, infallible, and all written by God/Jesus. Okay, let's stop there. Do you have comments on that one? This is what's so important. This is where evangelicals are going to start checking out because of the fear that we were brought up with, which means if I hear anything that doesn't say these things, that is, we're just going to list them off. Heretical, political. They just want to do their own thing. This is not Christian, not Jesus-like, abomination. Any other words you want to throw out there?
Slippery slope, dude.
Slippery slope.
Disrespectful, ignorant.
Excellent.
Wolf in sheep's clothing.
Wolf in
False prophet.
False prophets.
Oh, I got blasphemous temptress. I really like that one already.
I want to make you a T-shirt.
Oh, we did. It's on the
I love that.
Proclaim site.
And guess what? I have one. I bought one. And it's upstairs. I'm going to wear it to the party.
Yes.
One last one is, do you believe that you have to pray the sinner's prayer in order to go to heaven, and the people that don't pray sinner's prayers go to hell of eternal conscious torment?
Oh, God.
You didn't ask if we believe in hell yet, but okay.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, I hope I broke some of your brains, because for evangelicals who may have never heard of this, this is where some people, your faith bubble bursts. You're so confused. You're like, what are you talking about? And I'm trying to show you 3 Christian pastors, 3 Christian leaders here that are saying that is not the only way to interpret the Bible. Out of those things, if there's like one that you want to just pick out and talk about that, if you can help people who are right now feeling a little bit like, what the hell? What the hell?
You know, I want to talk about the Bible. Like I do. And, you know, there's a couple of different entryways in. And when you have been taught your whole life that this is not something you get to ask questions about, then it feels like sacrilegious to begin asking the questions. And yet, you know, I believe in a God who says questioning in relationship is how we are going to function in this world. You know, I think about the work of Marcus Borg, who claimed that the Bible is an historical, metaphorical document. What he posits essentially is that, like, of course it's a metaphor. Jesus says, I am the rock. Do we believe that Jesus is a statue?
Mm-hmm.
Do we believe that Jesus is bread? I mean, yeah, well, yeah,
Or
you know,
chicken.
or chicken, or, you know, whatever, all of these metaphors that are woven in the text that invite a reading of metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so what makes the line between that and a document that gives us a relational model of how to be faithful in relationship across generations? I mean, as a Christian person, I really think that these texts are, you know, ancestors of faith that showed one way of being. And as our preacher preached last night, the more it changes, the more it stays the same. Whatever we're going through is somewhere in that book, which is not a book, but, you know, many, many, many books of poetry, erotica, fiction, nonfiction, lineages, how-tos and didactics, and so much more. Bible.com. And so, like, you know, how we look at the Bible does not need such a narrow definition, because as soon as we start narrowing, as soon as we create a binary, heaven, hell, it doesn't serve us.
Yeah.
Somebody's left out, you know, and I don't believe that God wants God's beloved children to be leaving God's beloved children out. If we really believe that he came to save the world, then the world is not just one particular way of being. It can't be.
Uh-huh.
You know, so we have to make a choice. Do we actually believe that he came to save the world? Or do we believe that he came to save, you know, the ways in which we must behave in order to be loved?
For God so loved my worldview, right?
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
God so loved the 7 mountain mandate
Yeah.
that we will take over everybody and make sure that everybody lives the way that we think it needs to be. No, but it's important, right? It's important because this is happening right now. And that's why I think it's so incredibly important that pastors who are progressive, which, by the way, there's not like only 3 in the world. There are so many, but they're not loud typically and not vocal. And that's actually part of the culture is what I have found out.
Ooh.
So, Rev Reilly, what are your observations about mainline pastors and the culture that is different than the evangelical proclamation, convert everybody in the airports and wherever we can?
So I'm going to be really vulnerable.
Okay.
And say that and speak only for myself.
Mhm.
I am afraid. I am afraid of people on the internet being mean to me because I am a fat, queer, non-binary, assigned female at birth, Midwestern, middle class, able-bodied currently. I feel so vulnerable lifting up my voice. And I feel like I have had to slog through the mud of bad theology to be able to get to the pulpits and the proclamation spaces that I'm in. I am afraid that if I become public, it will break my spirit with the meanness that will come at me, because I've already been called an abomination and a heretic just existing, right? So for me, that's part of it. That's a really embodied part of it. The other piece of it for me is I'm a pastor. Like, I've got hospital visits to make. I've got, games to play with teenagers. I've got Bible study to lead. I've got sermons to prepare. I'm too busy doing the work of trying to make love and justice real in the world on a hyper local level. And I believe that as much as digital, international, beyond the wall spaces are essential to our faith and our global communities, I also believe that change can only happen when you know your neighbors. Jim was talking about these virtual coffee hours. Like, on a Sunday morning, we pass the peace, and often I say this may be the only time in someone's week where someone will look them in the eyeball and say their name and shake their hands. If someone gets touched, that human touch. And that is, for a lot of lonely people, that human connection, either happening online or in person, is really essential. I don't know yet. I'm discerning right now whether or not I am called to be loud. There's a lot of self-doubt of, am I smart enough? Am I savvy enough? Can I withstand the slings and arrows of the enemy? Are there enough people already doing this? Like, everybody's got a Substack. Everybody's got a TikTok. And I'm also the type of person who thinks anything popular, or I'm an Enneagram 4, right? So, like, anything popular is not my bag. But, like, discipleship is important, right? I'm not interested in saving souls. That's between Jesus and the individual. But I am interested in making sure my neighbors are fed, that my neighbors are treated with dignity, that my neighbors aren't afraid of getting disappeared in the night. Like, my literal neighbor who, when I knock on the door and ask if a package got misdelivered to his house, pushes his children behind him and cracks open the door until I say his name. Right? Like, these are the things that I'm interested in. So, there's the lie of scarcity. Like, I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough capacity to do this. But maybe it's my call. I don't know that I answered your question directly, but that is sort of my take on it.
Thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable. I think for me, the more I'm continuing to do this work and to learn about all these different cultures, I continue to come back to, we are in a body of Christ.
Yeah.
And some are the hands and some are the feet, some are the eyes and some are the nose. And so the people who are supposed to be the proclaimers in all digital spaces, you two, that is important. And there are people like you who are caring. We have been so cared for this week by Rev Reilly. There was a birthday today for someone, and Rev Reilly made a coconut vegan cake for this one person. And there's like 50 people here out of a million other things. And I have never seen anything but a smile on their face this whole time, done with so much love. And so I also want to honor your fears and I don't even know if it's a fears. I think as a queer person, you have really real concern.
Thank you. I feel very supported by your presence and your work. And so thank you for being a partner in this world.
And this is church, right?
Yeah.
I know that those of you who are listening, even if you're not in church spaces, you probably know this feeling. You probably miss it. And I miss this when I'm not in church spaces, to have the depth of relationship in ways that you just don't get in other spaces. So I'm grateful for that.
Bible in a minute, John 8. She's about to get stoned. The crowd watches, gleeful, but who here hasn't? And who here is without sin, says Jesus. Silence. The crowd dissipates, and Jesus says, they're gone. You too leave like them and keep doing your best. I think about this in a modern context with the do as I say and not as I do Christians. But what would it be like if we invited authentic, real, holy, and imperfect leadership, saying with our full selves, here I am, Lord. Jesus, the light of the world and not of this world, assures us of belovedness, worthiness, and belonging. And then, in turn, the crowd turns to toss stones at him. I don't know about you, but in a context like this, I'd rather be stoned with Jesus. I remember what I was going to say. Thank you. God, I had a kid, and then it's just like, where's my network go?
Yeah,
Like-
mine hasn't come back. It's been a decade. So
Oh, Lord Almighty.
you know.
Y'all pray for us. Y'all pray for us. I think that we are setting up a false binary between progressive and evangelical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Talk about that.
I don't think it serves us. In the United Church of Christ, most of the people in our congregations did not come up in this church. In this area, there's a lot of former Catholics. In other areas, there's a lot of evangelicals. And the culture of each local congregation is a mashup of everyone who makes it up. The founders, in so many ways, predict some of that, and then the claim to nostalgia and the ways we carry it forward in so many different ways. So you're going to find in the United Church of Christ that the further out west you go, the more kind of radical those churches are. They really are. And in this area, in New England, we are very connected to our congregational roots. It's the 250th this year, so many churches are ringing their bells on the 4th of July, proclaiming freedom, because this is, part of who and how this country formed was right here in Massachusetts, which is part of our conference.
We're in Connecticut.
Yeah, but there's very close together.
But Massachusetts is literally 40 minutes from here.
Yes, but he who transplants sustains. So that's the model of Connecticut. I grew up here in Connecticut. So thinking about the false binary we set up between evangelicalism and progressive Christianity is there. And yet, there are evangelicals in our churches who have these skills, who are doing this work. And yet, the code switching that Reilly named is something that we can do and we are choosing to do because it demonstrates a different way. I always harken back to when I was in high school, I was in the Gay Straight Alliance. I started the Gay Straight Alliance as a high schooler in a small rural town, bless, pray. I was also in the Bible Club. I love Jesus. And so there's this tension of a binary between the two that I have never, everybody else around me seems to have experienced, but it hasn't been for me. I was also in a conservative Christian youth choir that went around the state of Connecticut singing to people to save their souls. Sure. Okay. That means something different to me now, but does that mean that I'm not going to worship with you? I will, but I'm going to have commentary the whole way through. Never sit next to me in worship. I'm going to be chatty along the way if I have commentary. Just, heads up. Sometimes I think that how we show up is a reflection of who we are and how we're called to shift or change. And there is a choice point that many, progressive mainline congregations are having right about now of, are we willing to change enough to grow? And if we're not willing to change, then we perhaps won't grow. And some churches are on the forefront of that and experimenting and all of that, and some will not. That is a truth. The most faithful thing a church can do is decide that the proclamation of the gospel does not exist only in their sanctuary. And that's going to happen one way or another. Whether because their sanctuary is no longer here or because they've chosen change.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying we are at an inflection point that has not always necessarily been there, right? This is a time that there is no longer an option as much as maybe,
I don't know,
20 years ago.
I don't know. I think there is a statistical reality that since the formation of our denomination, we have been losing churches and people. I've read research where that follows up, and that is a curve, and it's happening in all of our places. If we're looking at the Pew reports, we're seeing that more people identify as none. Or we might have a surge here and there, but like the surge is based on this hook of certainties that don't pan out. And the turning point surge is a hook on a certainty that will not pan out. And I see our work as progressives is to be the onboarding, offboarding. The onboarding, it hasn't panned out. Oh my God, welcome. Let's sit in that together. Come in, all of that. The offboarding of just like deconstructing all of that and trying to figure out how much further you want to be in or out or on or whatever in a way that, we actually are well set up to do that work if we're willing to change.
Jim, you are as chronically online as I am. And so there are blessings and curses to those of us who are as plugged in as we are to what's happening in digital spaces. So especially in the church world, progressive or evangelical or conservative or everything in between, you kind of know what's going on, a little bit of the landscape. What do you notice that the concerns are for pastors who might be interested? And we've already gone over, not everyone will be called to the online space. But for those who might feel called to the online space and don't know where to go, can you name some of the concerns that you've heard from your understanding as a pastor?
When it comes to what mainline pastors engaging more in online spaces, I think sometimes their primary paradigm that they either have or that they feel from their church is, well, we would do that so people will come to the church, right? And the whole emphasis is it's just digital marketing, which the mainline church needs to do better at. I'm not saying we should just not improve that. That is one area where the whole world of evangelicalism has learned to do it well because they've just been in the spaces better. They have better looking websites. Why? Because they had donors who valued what that experience would be to bring people into that way of thinking. And mainline church is like, we'll take that money, but now we're going to use it to give someone a home and food instead of our website. So it's a shift in priorities. But often in the mainline world, there is that pressure of, well, this is going to get people in the church. And so you might try it once and no one comes. You try it twice, no one comes. And so you stop doing it the third time. And it's not that we shouldn't learn how to market ourselves better, to use that language, but I think it's missing the opportunity to actually show up in these spaces for ministry with people to represent what a person of faith and what Christianity can look like for the person who will never come to the church. I often say, I don't care about bringing people to church. I care about bringing church to people. And Rev, I would even say to you, if I can slide back to the previous conversation, what would a Reilly in the Midwest right now see when they're scrolling on their screen? And what if they saw you? Like, what if you as a teenager? So that to me is the sense of like, how can someone see the possibility?
Yeah.
And it's not to say get online and do it because all of your concerns are incredibly honestly legit.
Yeah.
But that to me is the sense of if the only thing people are seeing is one version of Christianity, I'm not willing to just give up the internet and concede it to a different flavor of theology.
Amen. Yep.
And I can say that as a white straight cis guy who doesn't have the same, people will come at me, but for a lot of different reasons. I'm going to hell because I think that the Bible doesn't condemn homosexuality, which I'm like, that's the sin. The sin is believing the thing not the way you believe it. That was baffles me. But yeah, mainline problem, I think, is misunderstanding the purpose because their biggest concern is no one's coming to our buildings anymore. We used to be the thing, and now we have a lot of empty seats. And so that's the big felt need that they have that they're still trying to address. And if you try to shift the attention to, well, let's do stuff online, it can feel like you're leaving your local congregation behind. So that's always the tension. How do we do this authentically and honestly with the people we're called to serve? And how do we reframe our understanding of who we're called to serve to be more than just the people who are showing up or who are in your neighborhood, but parish extends as far as the phone signal will reach now.
Yeah.
That'd be at least one way in. What are the other concerns that you find or that I didn't pick up?
I feel like I have to sneak around and do it outside of my church time. My superiors, they don't understand, they don't value it. And so they wouldn't be like excited for me to see this as part of my ministry as they would see me going to a protest or going to a shelter. Like they don't see the value of it. And so I feel nervous putting myself online, even if I'm excited to do it.
I think this is where in mainline spaces, reclaiming the word evangelism is helpful. And when a pastor can tell their congregation, we need to do evangelism. Here's one way we're going to do this. We're going to show the world what this expression of faith looks like. And this is where the people are. So let's do what Jesus and the Little Mermaid say. And I want to be where the people are, and go to that space, film the video, write the Substack, become a YouTuber, whatever the space that is called or compelled for a person. But I think it is part of that. It doesn't just have to be, how can you become a Christian influencer? It's how do we do this work of formation and discipleship that we're called to do, not just as pastors, but as congregations. So I think we definitely need to re-understand a bit of this.
Say the comment thing though.
What was the comment thing?
So like yesterday when Jay was teaching a workshop on
Oh, yeah.
all of this, you gave a tip that I think that those pastors listening and feeling a call to do some of this, I think that tip was really powerful.
Yeah. So at Riverside, I probably see most of the comments. Like, I don't post all the content. We have a communications team who does stuff, which is fun and cool too, but I'm the most personally engaging in those spaces. So I'm always intentional about screenshotting comments that our other clergy need to see and then share it on our Slack channel or whatever. Because like, I don't want it to just become a thing only I know about. And I can't expect them to be scrolling through the comments all the time, but how can I advocate on behalf? So put that in your church newsletter. You can, it's public, it's on the internet. You don't need to be like, do I have permission to print this thing that was publicly posted? Yes, you can do it. So how do you tell the story of not just we posted a video, but how do you tell the stories of the impact of the thing that you did? That's even more essential than the thing itself. The stuff you post, in my mind, is just a campfire. It's just a thing around which people can gather. We spend a lot of time, like there's different ways to make a good campfire and a bad campfire.
Other steps.
So let's make a good campfire, but the purpose of the campfire is not the campfire. You know, we're not here to say, you made the best campfire ever. It's, let's roast some s'mores, or I just learned how to do Bella cheese and pepperoni and make a little pizza this week. So that's the point, is the experience we share. So you got to have ways to communicate the impact that the campfire has made possible.
And so this is why, like, I'm in discernment about entering these online spaces, because before interacting with the two of you and your passion and expertise in the quality content that you put together, like, being an observer from a distance, like, oh, that's nice. I'm glad my colleagues are doing that. But like having these conversations is like, oh, maybe my voice should be added to this. And I think about this in terms of like white nationalist spaces where the radicalization is happening online. Yes. And I just said I wasn't interested in saving souls. But maybe I'm interested in like saving hearts, right? And saving people from isolation and despair, which leads to these catastrophic cultural events, right? Like I was in middle school and Columbine happened, and we thought, and we thought that was going to change the American landscape, and it did, but just not in the way we wanted it to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe an extension of my work with being a possibility model is to go, not like go into those radicalized spaces, but to offer other campfires, ones that are more welcoming and ones that are more affirming and ones that are more community oriented, right? Again, I don't know, but this energy and this excitement about digital ministry spaces and bringing the church to people is infectious and is contagious. And yeah, it makes me curious in a way I haven't been before.
And that, friends, is why Project Proclaim. Seriously, I mean, we need better tools to do this work of sharing the gospel. And we need to be thinking about how are we doing this? Because we can't do it the way that it's always been done. We can't. We're not going to make preaching great again. Not like that.
I think we are if they're shorter and online. Because I saw a clip from Reverend Jim's sermon, and it was talking about chauvinism, and it was talking about protecting women from a biblical perspective. And it was like a minute, but it meant so much to me to see a cishet white man, pastor, speaking like that.
Wearing the full costume, wearing collar and everything.
It means so
From
much.
the same pulpit that Martin Luther King preached at, no less. So it's fun to say that.
You're at Riverside.
Yeah. But
Wow.
these historic places can still say something today.
Yes.
Yes.
And they are.
Yes.
And they are, especially when I see comments, calling my friends who are female pastors heretics and having no respect for them just for seeing them. I love to scroll and see a pastor say, no, 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 that is not the only way you have to believe if you want to be a Christian. You do not have to believe that only men can be pastors. That is one theological framework, but that is not all of the theological frameworks. And you get to discern with incredible pastors that you get to choose your church yourself. And if you can't find one near you, there's one online at Riverside. And there's Project Proclaim.
Yeah, well, we are in a church. We're in an equipping methodology for those who want to continue to preach better.
Yeah, beautiful. I have a couple more concerns from mainline pastors that I've heard. I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. One is, well, evangelicals are loud online, the pastors, and I don't want to be like them. That's not my style. I don't want to shout like the way they shout. So I don't want to like even fight fire with like love or something like that.
I want to dodge the fire.
I just don't want to engage in that way online. What are your thoughts on that?
Even though the internet might feel like it's full of less than ideal weather, I just got to know where my raincoat is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so sometimes I'm not going to ignore the world if there's a mud puddle and my 6-year-old's going to jump in it. So I think the reality is like, just because it might be messy and it's not perfect doesn't mean you just wait until it's perfect to engage. If that's the case, we are never going to engage. And that's been true beyond just the internet. I'm not saying we shouldn't think critically and critique both the methodologies that are used and the infrastructure itself. Should I participate in a methodology that is creating an addiction in young people based on dopamine hits, both for the consumer and for the creator? I need to be conscious of that and aware of that. And yet there are people there, and I'm not going to cede it to just the loudest voice with the shittiest theology. So you don't have to just go back and shout. Here's one of my favorites. A friend of mine, Reverend Dion, whose last name I never pronounce correctly. She goes by Reverend D, so we'll call her Reverend Dion. She's in New York City at the United Nations Church Center. She is no longer able to speak with the voice she used to years ago, like just between the incidents in her life. So now, if she wants to speak in a way that her words aren't interrupted, she has to whisper. And we did a series where we had her making some short form video reflections. And she starts by whispering, "Lean in with me." And it was the contrast to what you hear, but it was some of the most engaging moments that I've seen, and so many others who saw this had seen as well. So to me, that says you don't just have to be the thing that you see everywhere, because our theology is not the thing that's being everywhere. So maybe it should show up differently. It should look and feel differently. The method itself then is part of the message. So that'd be my way of thinking about some of that.
Love it. All right, last one. Pastors, especially in the mainline side, said, I'm a pastor and I don't feel right because I don't want to be famous. It feels self-serving to put my face out there, and I don't want people to misinterpret if I'm like trying to be a celebrity. I don't want to be famous, and I don't want people to think that I'm doing this for me, and I don't know how to get past that.
It's a good thing they never stand up in front of anybody and show their face and talk, right? Why do you preach a sermon? What's the why behind that? Some pastors, it is to become famous. Why do they write the books? They want to become a best-selling author. That is the goal of some pastors in whatever part of Carolina who have how many mansions and spontaneous baptisms at their whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to name too many names. We can pick it out. That might be the goal for some people, but I think luckily a blessing in so many progressive mainline churches is that's not the goal. We're not in this for fame. We're not trying to just see a number go up and to the right. Sadly, every church uses butts and seats and dollars in the plate as a metric because that's one of the most countable things. And it does tell you a story. But I think we would all agree that a successful sermon is not a sermon that has the biggest offering. A successful sermon is not the sermon where more people come back next week. But that's good data, but that's not the point. I'm not preaching for that. So why do you preach a sermon? That's maybe the same why for why you should step into these online spaces. If you can be clear and honest about that, I think it just gives you a different kind of orientation to how you show up, period, as this person and pastor you're called to be.
Oh, so great. All right, Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, as we close, as you know, we always end this show when I have pastors on to ask for a moment of prayer.
Yes.
For those who are listening or watching who have not been prayed over in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if I could ask you to do that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Beloveds of God, be in a spirit of prayer with me. Holy Spirit, pour out your love on those who hear these words. Offer unto them your compassion, your understanding, as they hold themselves tight, close, wondering what here is for me. Bring them unto you, God, that they may feel equipped to do what they are called to do in the world, that they may be bold enough to step into spaces where they may not yet fully understand, but the questions themselves may be so holy. God, bless them with your grace, knowing that where they come from is not the prescription for where they go. That they, in conversation with you and all those who love them and who will love them, define their future forward, calling them towards the people you would have them be alongside a world we built together, where all people have enough. Enough food, enough home, enough love, enough energy. God, be with us, be with them, and help us proclaim the good word in this day and all days. For it is your gospel, and it matters. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Reverend Reilly Paige, Reverend Dr. Chris Davies, Reverend Jib Keat, thank you so much for being on the Sacred Slope today.
They say the holy water's watered down, and this town's lost its faith. Our colors will fade eventually, so if our time is running out, day after day.
Oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord.
I take one look at you.
Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed.
On the edge of your knife, sleep. The angels up in the clouds are jealous. No, you got me kissing the ground. We're sanctuary. Shadow me with your touch. Love return me to dust. The angels up in the clouds.
And that forming into the gospel.
Hopeless hallelujah, on this side of heaven's gate. Oh, my life, how do
The tenderest parts of ourselves, our insecurities, seen and loved on with grace and gentleness.
Thank you for joining us today on the Sacred Slope. If you'd like to nominate a pastor, priest, or clergy member anywhere in the world, send me an email at alexis@thesacredslope.com. Music was by Brett Rutledge, Eddie Irvin, and Sean Spence. May the fruit of the Spirit guide you this week. I'm Alexis Rice. Go in peace, friends.
There's beauty in unraveling, safety in the questioning. Home is where you're wandering. You're right where you're supposed to be. You're right where you're supposed to be.
Oh, and if you like this content, make sure to follow The Sacred Slope on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at The Sacred Slope. You can watch on YouTube or Spotify, and you can listen on Apple and everywhere you get your podcasts. Till next time.